I sat frozen at my own retirement party, the corsage wilting on my wrist as his words sliced through the laughter. She's lived off us for years. My son's voice carried over the clinking glasses, over the applause that suddenly felt like pity. 42 years of sacrifice, erased in a single joke. And in that moment, as the chandelier light flickered across my untouched dessert, I knew exactly which papers I would sign before the night was over. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The ballroom of the Hillcrest Country Club glowed in soft amber light, chandeliers flickering like candle flames over white tablecloths and clinking champagne flutes. A jazz trio played off to the side, barely audible over the hum of mingling coworkers, friends, and former clients. Gold script on a navy banner read, "Celebrating Evelyn Hart, 42 years of excellence." Evelyn sat at the center table, spine straight, lips pulled into a gracious smile as people stopped by to hug, thank, and admire. She nodded politely, half present. A floral corsage wilted gently on her wrist. To her left sat her best friend, Linda, blunt, loyal, and sharper than anyone realized at first glance. To her right, her son Greg, dashing in his tailored gray blazer, swirling his whiskey like he was about to win something. Evelyn had spent days rehearsing how she might feel when it was finally over. The deadlines, the conference calls, the quiet disappointment of watching younger men she trained climb higher, faster. She expected relief, maybe grief. Instead, she felt like something was waiting to snap. Greg stood suddenly, raising his glass. The band quieted. Conversations halted. "I just want to say a few words," he said, grinning as he reached for the mic from the DJ. "Because what's a retirement without a little roast, right?" Evelyn's smile froze. Her fingers curled beneath the linen tablecloth. "Mom," he began, pacing slowly, basking in the spotlight. "You've done amazing work. Really. We're proud of you. 42 years. Longer than I've been alive. Way longer. You've built something that matters." A few polite claps. Evelyn forced a nod. "But let's be honest," Greg chuckled, voice bouncing off the high ceilings. "She's lived off us for years." A ripple of laughter, light, hesitant, scattered like raindrops on concrete. Evelyn blinked. "She works," he added quickly, "but she doesn't really work. I mean, if it weren't for me running things now, the lights wouldn't even be on." "Right. Carrie?" His wife Carrie, sitting at the next table in a red sheath dress too tight for the occasion, giggled and sipped her rosé. A couple of Greg's colleagues laughed louder, sensing permission. Linda turned her head sharply. Evelyn sat motionless, as if someone had poured ice water down her spine. The room kept moving. Waiters passing hors d'oeuvres, forks clinking plates. But a ringing had started in her ears, distant and rising. She could taste blood, or maybe it was copper, bitter and metallic at the back of her throat. Greg tossed a wink at someone near the bar. "Anyway, congrats, Mom. We're lucky to have you. Even luckier now that you'll have time to finally relax. Maybe take up knitting." That got a bigger laugh. Linda's hand found Evelyn's under the table, firm and grounding. Evelyn didn't return the squeeze, not yet. She was too busy watching her son raise his glass like a man who hadn't just taken a match to 42 years of quiet sacrifice. She looked at his hands, the same hands she used to guide through handwriting worksheets, the same hands she'd applauded when he got his real estate license, the same hands he used now to sign the paychecks she still approved. But he didn't know that, or had forgotten. The music came back up. Guests stood and clapped. Greg bowed slightly, soaking in it. Evelyn stood too, steady and silent. Linda leaned in. "You okay?" "I need some air," Evelyn said quietly, already turning. She moved past the crowd, past the smiles and pats on the shoulder, past the women congratulating her like they hadn't just witnessed her son treat her like a decorative antique. Outside, the Idaho night air was dry and crisp. The foothills beyond the club parking lot glowed under the moonlight. She pulled her phone from her clutch, scrolled, tapped. A familiar name blinked back. Mark Alden, financial advisor. Her thumb hovered. Then, with a breath as calm as still water, she hit call. The phone rang once. "Evelyn?" came his voice. She stared out at the horizon, voice low. "I'm ready," she said. The soft thunk of the garage door rolling shut behind her barely registered. Evelyn moved through the house like a ghost, heels clicking across tile, corsage petals bruised from wear. The lights were still on, casting a warm, deceptive glow through the open-concept kitchen and down the hallway to her home office. She didn't bother changing out of her dress. The zipper caught slightly as she sat, but she yanked the chair forward anyway, hard enough to scuff the floor. For a moment, she just stared at the desk. The one Greg had joked was her hobby corner. It was sleek, modern, and spotless, except for the brass key resting in a shallow ceramic dish. She hadn't touched it in over a year. She picked it up. The bottom drawer made a tired wooden groan as it slid open. A faint scent of ink and old paper rose. Legal dust, Mark called it. Evelyn reached beneath a sheaf of archived bank statements and pulled out the black accordion file, still banded in a cracking rubber loop. Her fingers trembled, just once, as she unfastened the loop and flipped it open. There they were. Each document crisply labeled, tabbed, notarized. A decade ago, when Greg first started showing interest in taking things off her plate, she'd insisted on having everything reviewed and legally filed. He'd called it overkill. She'd called it good business. She ran a finger along the inked lines. Silent partner, Evelyn Hart. Executive Payroll Authority, Joint, Gregory Hart, Evelyn Hart. Power of disbursement, dual consent or emergency override by Evelyn Hart. Her name hadn't moved. Neither had her leverage. The room felt quieter than before. No refrigerator hum, no tick of the wall clock. Just her breath. Measured now. Slower. Like a hand releasing its grip on something too sharp to hold. She reached for the phone again. This time, no hesitation. Mark answered after one ring. "Did you make it home all right?" "I did." "And?" he asked, voice careful but not prying. "I have the file, all of it. The partner contracts, the disbursement forms, the override clause. It's untouched." A pause. Then, "You're still on the documents, Evelyn. Nothing's changed unless you signed it." "I never did." "Then," Mark said, with the quiet confidence of someone who's triple-checked, "you still hold the authority. He can sign paychecks, but you control the flow. Legally, practically, everything." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, the worn leather sighing beneath her. For years she'd stayed quiet, letting Greg build his narrative. The family business he'd rescued, the team he led, the name he elevated. Letting people assume she was background, a sweet old woman with a head for numbers but not for business. But she had always kept the file, and now, that file was oxygen. "I want to activate the emergency override," she said. Mark paused again, not from surprise, but respect. "Are you sure?" Her eyes settled on the framed photo above her desk. One of her and Greg, taken years ago outside the building they'd bought together. He was still in college then. He had asked her to pose like they were equals. She wasn't interested in posing anymore. "I'm not just sure," she said. "I'm done pretending he earned it." Mark exhaled. "All right, I'll start the paperwork on my end. We'll keep it clean. Quiet. You'll have to go in person to recertify the form at the bank." Evelyn reached for her planner. "Already cleared my schedule." "Good," Mark said. Because once this is filed, it's official. No payroll without your say. I'm counting on it. They hung up. Outside the office window, the streetlights buzzed under the Boise sky. A neighbor's dog barked. Somewhere in the distance, a late train passed through, horn low and mournful. Evelyn closed the drawer, this time with intention. She stood, took off the corsage, and dropped it in the trash. Then she walked to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water, her hands steady now. On the counter sat her phone. A new message blinked. Greg. Hey, you disappeared. Everything okay? She didn't open it. She just looked at the screen for a moment, then flipped the phone face down. Tomorrow, he'd learn exactly how not okay things were. The bell above the door jingled softly as Evelyn stepped into Maple and Main, their favorite brunch spot tucked just off Capitol Boulevard. It smelled of cinnamon rolls and burnt espresso. Cozy, nostalgic, deceptively innocent. Sunday morning sunlight poured through the tall front windows, streaking across the slate tile floor. Linda was already at their usual table near the corner, stirring cream into her coffee. No makeup, sunglasses perched on her head like she didn't care if anyone recognized her, which was exactly the truth. You look like hell, she said flatly as Evelyn sat down. I feel worse. The waiter came and went. Evelyn didn't open the menu. Linda leaned forward. Did he know what he was doing up there? Was that planned? I don't think he plans anything, Evelyn said, voice low. Not when it comes to me. Linda didn't say anything right away. She reached across the table, wrapped her fingers around Evelyn's for a beat, then let go. I've been replaying it all night, Evelyn continued. The way he laughed, the way Carrie laughed. He stood in front of my clients, my friends, and made it sound like I've just been freeloading off him. Like the company didn't even exist until he showed up in loafers. Linda raised an eyebrow. He's always been arrogant, but that was next level. I don't think he remembers I'm still on the paperwork. Oh, he remembers, Linda said. He's just banking on the idea that you won't use it. Evelyn looked out the window. Well, I'm done banking on anything. Their food arrived. Evelyn didn't touch hers. Linda picked at her eggs, eyes scanning Evelyn's face. You know this isn't the first red flag, right? She said finally. There's a pattern. The edits he makes to your reports before board meetings, cutting you out of vendor calls, changing the logo without asking you first. This is just the first time he did it with a microphone in his hand. I thought giving him more responsibility would make him feel empowered. Linda gave a dry laugh. You gave him an inch. He built a kingdom. Evelyn sighed and pulled a manila folder from her bag, slipping it across the table. I'm going through everything now. Not just the partnership agreements, the payroll flows, the filings. I want it all in front of me. Linda opened the folder. Her eyes narrowed. You kept all this? Every quarter, every wire, even the disbursement logs. I let him play CEO, but I kept the receipts. You're about to ruin his whole week, Linda said. And, for the first time that morning, Evelyn smiled. Her phone buzzed on the table. Carrie. Linda saw the name flash across the screen. Don't. But Evelyn had already picked it up. Carrie. Hope the party wasn't too much for you. You seemed a little overwhelmed. Just checking in. Evelyn read it 3 times. The emoji, the fake sweetness, the casual venom that dripped between the lines. She turned the screen to Linda. She's baiting you, Linda said. Don't bite. I'm not. I'm logging it. Linda looked amused. Logging it. Evelyn tapped the edge of the folder. You think I'm building a case against Greg alone? Outside, a gust of wind knocked an umbrella askew on the patio. A waiter hurried to fix it, napkins flying like little flags. Linda leaned back in her chair. You really are done pretending. I am, Evelyn said. This time, it won't be a lecture, it'll be a reckoning. She took a bite of toast. Calm now. The kind of calm that came with a loaded vault and a documented trail. Her phone buzzed again. This time, no emoji. Carrie. Also, Greg says we might need to move some payroll around this week. Let us know what's possible. Evelyn didn't respond. She slid her phone back into her purse and picked up her coffee, her voice quiet but flint-edged. I'll let them know, she said, when it's no longer possible at all. The bank branch on State Street wasn't busy. Monday mornings rarely were. Still, Evelyn waited by the windows, hands folded calmly over the leather strap of her purse, watching the Boise traffic drift by like nothing was about to change. Jen appeared a minute later, heels clicking softly against the laminate floor. Ms. Hart? She said, professional but warm. Evelyn stood. Thanks for making time. Of course, Jen said. Mark said this was urgent. They walked past tellers and glass offices, down a quiet hallway that led to the back conference room. Evelyn had been here before, in the early years, back when she and Greg had opened the business account together. She remembered the way he couldn't stop bouncing his leg under the table, asking questions he didn't understand the answers to. Jen closed the door behind them and offered a seat. Mark already uploaded the relevant authority documents this morning. We just need your wet signature here, she said, sliding a packet across the table. And here. And one more on this page. Evelyn read every line. She wasn't in the business of trusting anyone blindly. Not anymore. Not even Mark. Her name was still listed clearly. Authorized principal, power of disbursement, override control. The final form was short. A single paragraph that removed Greg's access to payroll authority until further internal review. This'll freeze his ability to move anything through the payroll system, Jen said. Not permanently, just long enough for your office to do what it needs to. Evelyn signed. Her signature flowed easily, no hesitation, no shake in her hand. Like she'd been waiting for this pen stroke for years. Jen stood. We'll process these immediately. Mark will get confirmation by close of business. Evelyn nodded once. Good. As she walked back through the main lobby past the security guard who gave her a polite nod, Evelyn felt a strange sensation settle over her. Not pride, exactly. Something deeper. Like reclamation. Like a rope that had been around her ankles for too long had finally loosened. By the time she reached the parking lot, her phone vibrated in her coat pocket. Instagram notification, Carrie Hart home, just posted a new photo. Evelyn unlocked her phone with a sigh and scrolled. There they were, Carrie and Greg, standing arm in arm under the event banner from the retirement party. Carrie's caption in cursive script, couldn't be more proud of our rock, Greg Hart, carrying the torch and leading the family legacy, key family, first. Gratitude such on retirement vibes. The comments poured in. You two are amazing. Greg is such a great example of what a strong husband should be. What a beautiful way to support your Emil during retirement. Evelyn stared at the screen, expression unreadable. Not a single mention of her. Not even her name. She tucked the phone away without responding. Later that afternoon, she sat on her back porch, sunlight resting on her shoulders like a warm shawl. A mug of coffee cooled slowly in her hands. The pine trees rustled gently in the breeze, and a hummingbird hovered near the feeder she hadn't filled in weeks. Inside the house, the fax machine clicked to life. Mark's legal filings had processed. The transfer of control was official. Her fingers tightened slightly around the mug. The sound of a car door slamming down the street broke the quiet. Neighborhood kids shouted faintly in the background. Somewhere, a lawnmower started. Evelyn took one long sip of her coffee. No rush. No announcement. She simply stared ahead, watching the shadows stretch across the yard, 1 inch at a time. Her phone lit up beside her. Greg. One new message. Hey. Can you sign off on the Jones install payroll this afternoon? Carrie wants to get the invoice out by Thursday. Evelyn didn't move. The message stayed unread, but her thumb hovered. Not over reply. Over the 3 dots in the corner. She tapped options, mute thread. A second later, she opened her voice memos app, hit record, and whispered 2 words. Initiate audit. The doorbell didn't ring. Greg pounded on it instead. One fist, rapid, loud. A demand, not a request. Evelyn was already waiting. She opened the door slowly, calmly, letting the autumn air move around her like water around a stone. Greg was standing there, jaw tight, breath fast, still dressed like he thought a blazer could fix everything. Carrie stood behind him, arms folded, oversized sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. Inside, Greg snapped. Now. Evelyn didn't move. Good morning, Greg. What the hell did you do? Still, she didn't step aside. You're going to lower your voice before you speak to me again. Carrie pushed past him, the faux gold strap of her bag swinging against her hip as she barreled into the house like she owned it. Evelyn raised one brow, but said nothing. Greg followed, eyes wild. The Jones payroll didn't go through. The platform bounced everything back, he said, voice sharp. 3 installers walked off the job today. I've got vendors calling me wondering why wires didn't land. You want to explain that? Evelyn closed the door behind them with the grace of a judge sealing a courtroom. I initiated a freeze, she said, walking past them toward the kitchen. Temporary, standard internal review. Greg's hands flailed. Temporary? Are you kidding me? You shut it down without warning, without talking to me. I didn't need to talk to you, she said, reaching into a drawer and sliding out the folder. Your authorization was conditional. Mine never was. Carrie laughed, a sharp barking sound. Too loud for the room. You're seriously sabotaging your own company because your feelings were hurt at a party? Evelyn placed the folder on the kitchen counter and flipped it open with a quiet snap. This isn't sabotage, she said. This is called accountability. Something you both seem unfamiliar with. Greg scanned the document and went pale. There it was, in black and white. Access restricted pending financial audit. His name crossed out, hers still listed, fully. You can't do this, he whispered, less certain now. I already did. Carrie threw her hands up. This is insane. Do you know how many bills are waiting? Do you know how this looks to our sponsors? We have a mortgage. My brand runs through those accounts. Then perhaps, Evelyn said, voice cold as marble, you should have married someone who read contracts before playing CEO. Greg's face flushed red, but the words caught in his throat. His hands shook, just slightly, and he shoved them into his pockets. You're going to kill the company, he hissed. No, Evelyn said. I'm saving it. Carrie stepped forward, finger pointed like a weapon. You're doing this now? After we threw you that whole party? After Greg spoke for you? Evelyn turned to face her fully. That speech was your final warning. What you framed as a gift was a humiliation. And now you want my signature on checks you don't respect, from a woman you think is too old to understand what she built. The room went silent. Outside, a leaf blower whirred faintly in the distance. Somewhere, a neighbor's dog barked, but inside the kitchen it felt like the air itself had frozen. Greg looked away first. Carrie tried to speak again, but Evelyn raised one hand, slow and steady, and the silence held. You want to know what this is? She said. This is me, no longer subsidizing your ego. Greg took a step toward the counter. Mom, don't, Evelyn said sharply. You've lived off my work, my reputation, my name. You've drained the accounts I opened, handed out salaries I approved, and played empire with the capital I earned. She stepped forward, her voice even, final. Now you'll live off yourself. Neither of them moved. Evelyn gathered the folder, tucked it under her arm, and walked past them toward the front door. When she opened it, cold air swept in like punctuation. You can let yourselves out. Greg didn't follow. Carrie stood still, lips parted, stunned into silence for once. Evelyn waited, still holding the door. Behind her, her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Mark. Audit reveal: irregularities in vendor contracts, flagged for potential misuse. Want to review together today? Evelyn looked over her shoulder. Close the door behind you, she said to them, unless you want the neighbors to hear the rest. The PDF from Mark arrived just after noon. Subject: ownership confirmation. Evelyn Hart Holdings. Evelyn opened it on her tablet at the kitchen table, coffee beside her. Unread texts from Greg, stacking silently beneath the notification bar. The document was clean, legally binding, notarized 6 ways to Sunday. Equity breakdown. Evelyn Hart, 62%, Gregory Hart, 0%, compensated managing officer, no ownership rights. Below that, initial capital investors, Evelyn Hart, silent partner agreements, active, asset title holder, Evelyn Hart. She exhaled. Not relief, exactly, but recognition. The truth was no longer in a drawer. It was public, legal, and ready for the light. She forwarded it to Linda with no message. None was needed. An hour later, Linda stood in Evelyn's home office with her reading glasses perched low on her nose, the file folder open like a crime scene. She flipped through line by line, humming under her breath. Every check, every reinvestment. You weren't just a silent partner, Evelyn. You were the spine. I knew he'd start ignoring my voice, Evelyn said quietly, so I made sure he couldn't ignore my name. Linda raised an eyebrow. He's going to say it's a mistake, or that it doesn't matter. You ready for that? Evelyn nodded. Let him. He did exactly that. That evening, Greg finally responded to the forwarded document. The subject line in his reply: just a technicality. His message was short. Looks like some outdated filings. Nothing urgent. We can update the state registry this quarter. Let's not panic over boilerplate. Evelyn read it once, then again. Boilerplate, she said out loud. The word tasting like acid. At the same moment, miles away in their townhouse kitchen, Carrie was not smiling. She paced with her phone in one hand and a half-drunk protein shake in the other, scrolling through old emails from their attorney. Greg sat at the counter, brows furrowed, staring at his laptop like it might blink out a solution. She owns it, Carrie snapped. The whole damn company. I told you, it's just how the paperwork was set up originally. Carrie spun on him. You told me we were building our future. You told me you had this. And now I'm Googling Idaho's marital asset laws like a girlfriend in a forum thread. He stood, hands raised. It's temporary. She'll cool off. This is post-retirement drama. Did you sign a prenup? She asked flatly. Greg blinked. What? Don't. What me, Greg? Did you sign one? He hesitated. A second too long. Carrie threw the protein shake in the sink, the bottle clanging loudly against steel. Jesus Christ, she muttered, storming out of the kitchen. I married a mascot. Greg didn't follow. He stared at the email on his screen, hands clenched into fists on either side of the keyboard. Back at Evelyn's house, Linda pushed her chair back. Well, now he knows. He still doesn't believe it, Evelyn said, scrolling through the property management system. He will, Linda replied. What's the next move? Evelyn clicked into the Secretary of State's website and opened the Business Registry Update tab. Changing the registered agent, she said calmly. Greg's name goes off the state file tonight. Linda raised a brow. You sure you don't want to wait? No, Evelyn said. I want the next letter he opens to remind him he doesn't sign for this company anymore. It took less than 10 minutes. She filled out the digital form, replaced Greg's name with her own, and listed the new P.O. box she'd opened that morning. Hit submit. The page refreshed. Update successful. Done, she said. Linda gave a low whistle. How's it feel? Evelyn sat back, watching the cursor blink on the confirmation page. Like the air finally belongs to me again. Her phone buzzed. Text from Mark. Quick heads up. Carrie's requesting access to vendor contracts. Looks like they're prepping a move. Want me to lock the back end? Evelyn texted back one word. Yes. The office smelled like lemon oil and toner. Evelyn had always hated the scent of toner. But today, as she sat behind the long-forgotten desk in the executive suite, she welcomed it like an old adversary she finally knew how to beat. The lights were dim. The building quiet. She didn't want anyone there yet. The cursor blinked at the top of the email template. 2. All staff. Subject: Payroll Policy Review. She typed the first line slowly, carefully, choosing words like she was laying bricks. Effective immediately, the company will enter a temporary payroll freeze, pending a formal audit of disbursement records and contractual compliance. No apologies, no explanations, just the truth, shaped into authority. Evelyn sat back for a moment, rereading the sentence. It sounded like policy, which meant it would hold. She kept going. All salaried positions will remain secure through the end of the review. However, all discretionary payouts, executive bonuses, and third-party contracts will be suspended until further notice. Questions may be directed to our internal auditor, Linda Kay. She paused before typing the final line, the one she'd waited weeks, months, maybe years to write. This decision has been made with full legal authority by Evelyn Hart, founding partner and registered agent. She signed her name. Then she added Linda's digital co-signature below, already uploaded from Mark's secure Dropbox. It was done. She hovered over the send button, then clicked. There was no fanfare, no pop, no sound at all. Just the whisper of retribution cloaked in corporate tone. Outside the conference room, Linda appeared, holding 2 coffees. You sent it? Just now. Linda handed her the cup. God, I've been dreaming of this email since the day he started parking in the spot labeled Executive Founder. Evelyn cracked the faintest smile. Me too. By midday, responses trickled in. Liam, the operations lead, replied. Long overdue. Thank you for putting accountability back on the table. Maya, the front desk admin, messaged privately. I was scared to speak up, but I've seen Carrie send company money to pay her podcast editor. I have receipts. Jorge, the logistics manager, sent an emoji-filled email that simply said, Let the mom lead again. Evelyn read each one in silence, not gloating, just absorbing. This was never about revenge. It was about remembering her own power and making sure no one ever forgot it again. Meanwhile, Carrie was unraveling. Her brand partnership dashboard showed 4 red flags. Sponsor hold, Maple Ridge Home Goods Campaign. Paused, West Edge Kitchenware. Status, unresponsive, pending investigation. Her latest Instagram post, a pastel-filtered photo of a charcuterie board with the caption, Working through the hard stuff with love and grace, gam wife hustle, Dane, faith first, had turned into a comment war. Someone had posted a screenshot of the payroll freeze announcement. Someone else added a link to Carrie's Amazon storefront. Within an hour, her follower count dropped by 3,200. She threw her phone on the couch. Greg sat in silence on the other end of the room, laptop open, the email from Evelyn glowing like a legal bullet. She sent it to everyone, he muttered. Carrie looked up, her voice brittle. Did you see what Linda signed? Greg rubbed his forehead. Internal auditor. And no one told me? No one ran this by me? You're not on the board, Carrie. She laughed bitterly. Neither are you. Not anymore. Back at headquarters, Evelyn printed a hard copy of the announcement and slid it into the company bulletin board frame just inside the main entrance. Then she took the elevator down, walked across the quiet lobby, and unlocked the glass doors before the first employee arrived. The air was brisk outside. Sharp. She waited by the reception desk, coffee in hand, as the first wave of staff entered. Some hesitated, unsure. Others offered small nods. When Jorge walked in, he paused at the announcement. Then he looked at Evelyn and grinned. "Good to have you back," he said. "I never left," Evelyn replied. Her phone buzzed as she returned to her office. Mark. Text. Carrie tried accessing contract archives through an old shared drive. She's locked out now, but she's panicking. Evelyn tapped the screen. One more firewall up. One more gate closed. She stared out the window for a long time, watching the clouds roll over the Boise foothills. Then she opened a blank document. Its title, Board Reinstatement Protocols, Phase 2. The calendar invite hit inboxes just after midnight. Subject, urgent, executive board session, private. Host, Gregory Hart. Time, 10 hours. AM location, Zoom, private room. Evelyn wasn't included. Not that she expected to be. She sat at her desk the next morning with her tablet open, skimming vendor reports while her coffee cooled beside her. She'd seen Greg's attempt at a last-minute board coup coming a mile away. And so had Linda. At exactly 9:57 a.m., Linda texted, "Logging on, proxy access confirmed. Let's rattle some cages." Evelyn smiled faintly and minimized her inbox. Across town, in his condo office, Greg sat stiffly in front of a ring light and a borrowed mic, the kind Carrie used for sponsored live streams. He wore a navy sport coat and a strained smile, his jaw twitching every time the waiting room chimed. The board members trickled in. Joel from legal, Ray from facilities, Denise from HR. Carrie hovered just off screen, holding her phone like it was a security blanket. "All right," Greg began. "Thanks everyone for making time. I wanted to get ahead of some confusion that's been floating around after Evelyn's announcement." He cleared his throat, falsely casual. "Obviously there's been a bit of a miscommunication." Then the chime hit again. Greg's eyes flicked to the screen, his breath caught. "Linda Kay is joining this meeting." "No," he muttered, moving to click remove. But another pop-up appeared. "This participant has been granted proxy board access by founding partner." Carrie stepped closer. "What the hell?" Linda's face lit up the screen, calm and composed in front of a bookshelf lined with policy binders and a tiny bonsai tree. "Morning, everyone," she said, as if she hadn't just detonated the meeting's illusion of control. "Apologies for the intrusion, but I have standing proxy rights under Article 3, Section B of the Partnership Charter." Joel from legal looked down at his notes, then slowly nodded. "She's right," he muttered. Greg tried to recover. "This isn't necessary." "This is overdue," Linda said. "And I'd advise we all proceed with caution. The audit Evelyn initiated is ongoing. Any executive decisions made today without full quorum could be considered invalid and retaliatory." Greg's jaw clenched. "We're not retaliating. We're just trying to preserve continuity." Linda looked directly into her webcam. "Greg, continuity doesn't look like deleting Evelyn's name off internal documents and calling emergency board sessions behind her back." Joel looked up again. "Wait, is that true?" Greg stammered. "That's taken out of context?" "Is it?" Linda replied, expression unreadable. "Because the server logs tell a different story." Across the table in Evelyn's office, the conversation played out on her muted screen. She sat with her headphones unplugged, letting Linda take the floor. She wanted Greg to think she wasn't watching, that he had room to fumble, panic, and lie. He was doing all three, in high definition. By 10:22, Carrie had slinked out of frame. By 10:29, Ray and Denise had gone quiet. At 10:34, Linda made it official. We're filing an emergency shift of financial control to Evelyn as sole disbursement officer, she said, per audit recommendation, effective today. Greg stared at the camera like he couldn't believe it was real, like he thought power came from presence, not paperwork. You can't do that, he tried. It's already being done, Linda said, tapping a key on her laptop. Mark just sent the filings to the state. You'll see it hit the board email shortly. The Zoom window blinked. New email, state filing, disbursement authority, reassignment, confirmed. Greg didn't speak. The silence in his condo was heavier than before. Linda smiled, polite as ever. Meeting adjourned. She logged off. Back at headquarters, Evelyn finally reached for her headphones. She plugged them in, just in time to hear the last chime as the meeting ended. A new message popped up from Mark. Filed and time-stamped. Greg's locked out of all payment queues. Do you want to notify him formally? Evelyn stared at the screen, thoughtful. Then, with clinical precision, she typed her reply. No. Let him find out when the next check bounces. The glass walls of the boardroom turned the morning light into something cold and metallic, a glare that made no one comfortable. Greg sat at the far end of the polished table, collar slightly wrinkled, coffee untouched. Carrie sat beside him, lips pressed into a glossy, trembling line. Across the table, Linda arranged a neat stack of printed documents. No words, just quiet preparation, the kind that unsettles loud people the most. The door opened behind them. Evelyn walked in. No fanfare, no theatrics. Just the steady, measured steps of someone who had nothing left to prove, and everything left to take back. Greg's chair scraped faintly as he stood. Mom. Evelyn raised one hand and he sat back down like it wasn't even his idea. Let's begin, she said. Joel from legal nodded, clicking the meeting recorder on. Evelyn turned toward the mounted screen, where her tablet mirrored a slide deck already queued. With a tap, the first slide appeared. Findings from preliminary audit, Q3 disbursements. The next slide was worse. 3 vendor names, 2 listed twice. All were companies tied to Carrie's personal ventures. LLCs, Shell Marketing Services. One of them a podcast production firm with only 2 invoices, both paid within the same week. Linda handed out hard copies of the packet like she was dealing blackjack. 1 for each board member. None for Greg or Carrie. Carrie squinted at the screen. Those are legitimate vendors. Evelyn didn't flinch. With no deliverables, no oversight, and inflated fees. All funneled through Greg's approval channel. All while payroll requests from field staff were delayed for weeks. Greg's voice cracked. That's not what happened? You approved $11,000 to Heartline Creative Solutions in July, Evelyn said, turning to face him. A company Carrie registered 4 months prior. She listed your condo as the billing address. All eyes shifted to Carrie, who blanched. That money was for brand consulting, she said quickly. It was for the business. Greg's brand is the business. Evelyn's gaze didn't move. You used company money to buy yourself influence, but you forgot whose name was on the bank. Linda tapped her pen twice against the table. And just to clarify, none of these transactions were reviewed by accounting. Because Greg manually bypassed the check gate. Greg turned to Joel. Okay, yes. Some of the controls were loosened, but we were trying to streamline operations. We needed faster flow, and Evelyn wasn't exactly present for months. You mean while I was running the business you were calling yours? Evelyn asked. Silence fell. Carrie stood up suddenly, grabbing her bag. This is ridiculous. You're doing this because you're bitter, because you got embarrassed at your own party. Evelyn didn't turn. Carrie stormed toward the door. I don't need to sit through some retirement revenge fantasy. No, Evelyn said, just loud enough to halt her. You'll sit through the consequences. You helped spend what you didn't earn, and now that the well's gone dry, you think walking out is a strategy. It's not. Carrie stared at her for a long second, then left without another word, heels echoing down the hallway like falling coins. Greg sat alone now, hands shaking slightly. Mom, please, this doesn't have to go further. Let's just fix it. Quietly. Like a family. Evelyn looked at him then. Really looked. And for the first time in a long while, there was no softness in her eyes. Not even sadness. Just the clear calculation of someone who had reached the end of giving. I'm filing a motion to buy out your share, she said. Greg blinked. What share? Evelyn tapped the final slide on her tablet. Equity clarification, operating control transition. The one you don't actually own, she said. But for legal tidiness, I'm offering a buyout of your title as managing officer. It'll be ceremonial. A clean exit. He shook his head. You can't do that. Linda folded her hands. She already did. Filing went through this morning. Mark just confirmed receipt. Greg sat there, frozen. You said this was about family, Evelyn added, but you treated it like inheritance. And this was never yours to inherit. Evelyn didn't wait for a counteroffer, a call, or a tantrum. She didn't need Greg's signature, just a completed draft, a revised title agreement, and Mark's quiet efficiency. By noon, the buyout was done. She sat at the breakfast nook with her iPad propped against a sugar jar, skimming the final PDF while the kettle hissed behind her. The paperwork was elegant in its cruelty. Greg's title was removed, his duties dissolved, his monthly stipend zeroed. In exchange, Evelyn wired a modest exit package to his personal account. Just enough to be legal, just little enough to sting. Her private account had funded worse mistakes. This one, at least, came with closure. Across town, Greg sat slouched at his kitchen counter, still in yesterday's dress shirt, watching the transaction hit his banking app like a death certificate. $25,000. Labeled, buyout, final. He tapped it. The details confirmed everything. Irrevocable, filed and processed through the company's treasury, which no longer required his approval. Or access. 25 grand? He muttered. That's it? He swiped again. Same number. Same label. Is that even legal? Carrie didn't answer. She was on the other side of the kitchen, wrapped in a chunky cardigan and a rising sense of dread, refreshing her email. Her agent hadn't replied in 3 days. Another brand had quietly archived her latest campaign. Greg turned to her. Can we call Mark? There has to be. She is working with Mark, Carrie snapped. He's the one who filed it. He flinched. So what? He just sides with her now? Carrie slammed her laptop shut. Greg, she owns the company. We've been living off it like it was guaranteed. Like it was ours. Greg stood, pacing now. No, this isn't over. He picked up his phone, dialing. It went to voicemail. He tried Linda. Straight to voicemail. He tried Mark. This time, someone answered. Greg, Mark said, his voice professional and unmoved. I just got a wire, a buyout. 25,000? You can't be serious. Mark didn't sigh, but the silence between words carried the weight of one. It's final. You are a managing officer, not an equity partner. The board reviewed and approved Evelyn's proposal. Your title's been dissolved, effective this morning. That's theft. It's compliance, Mark said, and frankly, a generous one. She could have filed a misconduct claim and had your compensation revoked entirely. But she didn't. Greg gripped the edge of the counter. What am I supposed to do with 25 grand? Mark's tone didn't change. That depends. If you're smart, downsize. Then he hung up. Back at Evelyn's, Linda stepped into the office with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one off, watching Evelyn type out a line on a follow-up email to HR. Is it done? She asked. Mark confirmed, Evelyn said. He's been officially bought out. Linda leaned against the doorframe. Bet he thought there'd be some last-minute reversal, some apology, some lifeline. Evelyn didn't look up. He spent 10 years bluffing with money that wasn't his. He finally folded. I'm just the dealer. Linda sipped her coffee, smiling. Cold. No, Evelyn said, finally turning. Clean. They both watched the loading bar as Evelyn uploaded the formal notification to the company server. Effective immediately, Gregory Hart has stepped down from all operational and leadership roles. Linda raised her mug. To the end of the Greg Hart era. Evelyn clinked hers softly. And the beginning of the truth. Greg stared out the window of his condo, phone dangling in his hand. Across the street, construction crews were tearing down an old storefront, jackhammers pounding through concrete like war drums. He didn't even notice Carrie had left the room until the front door clicked shut. He refreshed his inbox. Nothing. Then finally an alert. Bank notification, automatic transfer scheduled, business card payment declined. He blinked, then swore, then tapped again. 3 more autopays failed in quick succession. The business card, his office lease, the utilities attached to the company's now closed account. All of it. Disconnected. He parked in his old spot, reserved G. Hart, the painted letters still there, even if the title no longer meant anything. He didn't even pause to check his phone. There were no new messages, no callbacks, no apologies. But he was sure this was a misunderstanding. Some overreach. Some paperwork mistake that would be reversed if he just walked through the door and reminded everyone who he was. He adjusted his collar in the rearview mirror, then walked up to the glass front doors, reached for the handle. And it didn't budge. The doors stayed locked. Inside, 2 security guards appeared near the reception desk. Both new, both stone-faced. One of them stepped forward and pushed the intercom. Can I help you, sir? Greg leaned toward the glass. I'm Greg Hart. The guard didn't blink. You're not on the approved entry list. Greg blinked back. This is my building. Not anymore. Greg glanced past him. A few employees were arriving behind the security checkpoint. Familiar faces, people he used to call by nickname, people who used to laugh at his jokes. They walked past the glass doors and didn't wave. He felt something cold at the base of his spine. And then he saw her, Evelyn, walking calmly through the lobby, wearing a crisp navy jacket, a white blouse, and the look of a woman who didn't need permission to be where she stood. Greg pounded the glass. Mom, open the damn door. She didn't flinch, just glanced his way like he was a noise outside, distant, avoidable. Then she walked past. Greg's voice cracked. You can't just shut me out. But Evelyn was already gone, heels echoing down the hallway that led to the executive wing. Behind him, a car door slammed. Carrie, in sunglasses and fury, stormed toward the building with her phone held high like a weapon. They think this is legal? She barked to no one, camera rolling. They think they can erase someone after years of service? After everything we've done for this company? She panned toward the glass door. This is a hostile corporate seizure. It's elder abuse. It's misappropriation. Greg grabbed her arm. Carrie, stop filming. No, she said, yanking away. Let them see it. Let them all see it. But inside the building, no one looked worried. No one rushed to unlock the door. No one stepped out to explain. They simply kept walking. Evelyn at the helm. And somewhere in a back office, Linda sat at her desk, sipping iced tea. Typing. She opened Twitter. Posted a single line. When your son forgets you, still sign the lease. Heartline. No more began trending locally within the hour. By the time Carrie posted her 6th-story slide, complete with faux legal threats, and a low-res screenshot of Greg's nameplate, someone from accounting had already reposted Linda's tweet with a clapping emoji. Back inside, Evelyn walked into the main conference room where HR had just finished setting up for the employee Q&A. Jorge stood near the table, flipping through the printed agendas. Was that them out front? He asked quietly. Evelyn gave a slight nod. Yes. Jorge hesitated, then smiled. People are glad you're back. I didn't leave, she replied. He nodded and went back to prepping the chairs. Evelyn took her place at the head of the table. She didn't need to say it, but the silence in the room spoke volumes. The building belonged to her now, not by force, but by fact. Her phone buzzed. Text from legal. Carrie's lawyer just sent a cease and desist draft. Nothing enforceable. Another text from Linda. Ready to publish the next wave? Evelyn didn't reply. She walked to the window, watching the silhouettes of Greg and Carrie still arguing at the glass door. They looked smaller now, frantic, fading. She picked up her phone, tapped Select, chose 6 internal reports, already reviewed by Mark, tapped Forward, entered the press contact for the Idaho Ledger, then hit Send. There were no outbursts, no slammed hands or rising voices, just the dry shuffle of legal pads, the creak of benches, and the steady, withering click of Evelyn's low heels as she took the stand. Carrie watched from the opposite table, face frozen, mouth drawn tight. She hadn't looked at Greg in over an hour. Greg sat next to her, slouched in a loaned suit and sweat blooming at his collar. Carrie's attorney, a sharp-chinned man from Salt Lake, cleared his throat. Mrs. Hart, he said, standing. To clarify, you're claiming that your husband, Mr. Greg Hart, holds no actual equity in the business his mother founded? Evelyn didn't blink. That's not a claim, that's a fact. The records were filed over a decade ago. I brought copies. She gestured to the packet Linda had prepared. Stamped, signed, notarized. Mark had already testified. So had Joel from legal. Even the Secretary of State's office had emailed a formal declaration. Greg Hart held 0 ownership stake in the company. None of the filings could be disputed. What Carrie thought she married didn't exist on paper. The judge adjusted his glasses. So there are no marital assets tied to the company? Correct, Evelyn said. The attorney turned back toward Carrie, whose eyes stayed locked forward. No further questions, he muttered. Carrie stood then, on her own. I'd like to say something. Greg turned sharply. Carrie. The judge gave her a measured look. You're not under oath. I don't care, she said, voice sharp. I just want the record to reflect something. She turned to Evelyn, calm but cold. You win. Then to Greg. I want out. Greg's mouth fell open. What are you? Carrie stepped away from the table. You were supposed to build something, but you borrowed everything, even your backbone. And you lost it all trying to impress a mother you never respected. The courtroom stilled. I'm done, she said. With the company, with your lies, with pretending that being your wife didn't cost me everything I actually built. She looked at Evelyn one last time. Good luck to you. Then she left. The door shut behind her like a final gavel. 2 weeks later, a moving truck idled outside their townhouse. Carrie didn't pack much, just the essentials and her brand gear. The influencer kits, the ring lights, the backdrop stands. The rest she left in boxes on the curb. Her attorney had filed for divorce the same day the court ruled in Evelyn's favor. No spousal support, no business compensation. Just a clean break, scorched earth behind her. Greg stood at the top of the stairs, barefoot, watching the boxes disappear one by one. "I don't have a plan," he said quietly. Carrie didn't even look up. "You never did." He tried once more. "I didn't mean for it to go like this." She gave a bitter half smile. "Greg, nothing in your life has gone how you meant it." Then she got in the passenger seat of a waiting car and didn't look back. Greg's new apartment was on the edge of downtown Boise, a cramped second-story studio above a vape shop with peeling paint and no covered parking. He paid 6 months in advance using what was left of the buyout. There was no view, no private office, just a fold-out couch and a kitchenette too small for a full-sized fridge. The night he moved in, he sat on the floor, eating Chinese takeout from a paper container with a plastic fork. The apartment buzzed faintly, a cheap wall unit wheezing warm air into the silence. His inbox had no offers. His phone had no missed calls. He checked social media once. His name was still trending, just not in the way he'd hoped. He turned off his phone and lay back on the floor, eyes to the ceiling, wondering what Evelyn had told the ledger and how much worse it could still get. The pen made a faint whispering sound as it moved across the paper. Evelyn signed her name with steady precision, looping each letter as if it mattered, because it did. The lawyer, a woman named Caroline with a clipped tone and a firm handshake, slid the second page forward. "This version supersedes all previous iterations," Caroline said. "It leaves no room for contest." Evelyn nodded. Caroline gestured toward the last section. "Final beneficiaries?" "I've left the home to the foundation," Evelyn said. "And Mr. Hart?" There was a long silence. Evelyn didn't look up. She simply tapped the line labeled Gregory Hart and said, "0. The lawyer blinked. "Just confirming. Nothing?" "No trust. No clause. Not even the couch in the den." Evelyn replied, "Let the record show I gave him more than enough chances in life. This legacy isn't for him." Caroline nodded once, added her initials, and slid the documents into a leather folder. Linda was waiting outside in the lobby. "Well?" she asked as Evelyn stepped out. "It's done." Linda handed her a small blue folder. "So is this." Evelyn opened it. Inside was the certificate of incorporation for the Hart Women in Trade Scholarship Fund. Underneath it, a single-page flyer mocked up by Linda's niece. "Because women build legacies too, starting with their own names." Evelyn smiled softly. "The foundation launches next quarter," Linda said. "We've got enough to fund 5 full-ride programs the first year. More if the donations come through." "Let's set up a workshop too," Evelyn said. "Financial literacy, contracts, how to read a balance sheet before signing your name next to a man's." Linda chuckled. "You're really not done teaching, are you?" "I'm just getting started." Across town, Greg sat in the break room of a temp agency, nursing a cup of coffee that tasted like it had been brewed in 1998. His appointment had ended 5 minutes ago, but he hadn't moved. The job counselor had skimmed his resume, pursed her lips, and asked, "Is any of this verifiable?" He didn't know how to answer. Even the company email he used for reference was gone now, his inbox deactivated, the domain archived under Evelyn's name. He'd left 3 voicemails for Mark. 1 for Joel, 2 for Linda. None were returned. That afternoon, he made the last call he'd avoided. To Evelyn. The line rang once, twice, then voicemail. He paused before speaking, but when he did, his voice sounded different. Worn, raspy, like he was trying to talk through gravel. "Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. For how I made you feel. For what I took for granted." He hesitated. "I thought I was building something. I didn't realize I was standing on something you built." Another pause. He exhaled. "If there's anything left for me, even a conversation, I'd take it." I'd earn it this time. Then he hung up. Evelyn listened to the voicemail alone in her office, sun pooling across the carpet. She let it play once. Just once. Then deleted it. No reply. No rewind. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Some bridges didn't burn. Some bridges she torched herself and never regretted. Her phone buzzed again. Mark this time. Subject: urgent, bankruptcy, filing received. She opened the attached scan. Gregory Hart. Personal bankruptcy petition filed, 10:42 a.m. Reason: insolvency, business failure liabilities, $118,409.17. Assets, 8,402.81. Evelyn blinked once. She should have felt something. Pity, vindication, relief. But instead there was just stillness, like a room after a long, thunderous storm. She placed the phone face down, picked up the scholarship brochure, and whispered, "We start clean." Former executive Greg Hart files for bankruptcy, cites failed transition. Evelyn didn't read the whole article. She didn't need to. The first paragraph was enough. Once expected to take over his mother's business, Heartline Industries, Greg Hart is now facing over $100,000 in liabilities after being removed from the company's leadership earlier this year. Sources close to the matter cite allegations of mismanagement, improper disbursement approvals, and a failed corporate restructuring attempt. The phone on her desk buzzed, but she didn't answer it. She had eggs on the stove. The yolks didn't break. By noon, she had 5 voicemails and nearly 24 texts, not from Greg but from old colleagues, suppliers, former employees. Liam, text: read the news. Should have happened sooner. We're still behind you. Maya, voicemail: I know you probably don't want a million messages, but thank you for taking it back, for cleaning up what he almost ruined. One came from a former intern, now a junior project manager in Denver. Ari: I remember the day you taught me how to read a profit and loss statement. I didn't understand it until I saw how fast a man could break one. Thank you for giving me something to believe in. Evelyn didn't reply to any of them, but she saved them all. Linda showed up around 2 p.m., wearing snow boots and a red scarf she only brought out once winter meant business. She dropped a folded printout on Evelyn's kitchen counter. Read the note, she said, pulling off her gloves. I think you'll want to see this one. Evelyn unfolded it. A handwritten letter on notebook paper, dotted with neat, determined cursive. Dear Ms. Hart, my name is Karina, and I'm the first recipient of the Hart Women in Trade Scholarship. I'm going into my 2nd semester for electrical systems, and your scholarship paid for all my books and tools. No one in my family ever got to finish school. You gave me that chance. I don't know your story, but thank you for writing a better ending for girls like me. There was a heart drawn at the bottom. A real one, not the emoji kind. Evelyn read the letter twice, then once more, slower. She's from Meridian, Linda said. Youngest of 5. Her sister emailed the office last week just to say thank you. Evelyn placed the letter beside the sink, smoothing the edges with the palm of her hand like it deserved to lie flat. She'll do something with it, she said. She already is. Outside, snow had started to fall, slow, clean flakes, drifting like they'd been waiting for permission. Evelyn stood at the kitchen window, rolling up her sleeves. Dinner was simple: chicken, rice, a salad with crisp apple slices. The way she used to make it on Sundays, back when things were quieter, before boardrooms and contractors and unspoken betrayals started taking up all the oxygen. She let the sauce simmer, turned the radio to something slow, not sad, just still. At one point, she stepped outside to shake the mat clean. The sky was turning gray-blue, the light pale and forgiving. Across the street, holiday lights blinked softly on a neighbor's porch. Inside, the oven dinged. She didn't rush. That night, Evelyn sat by the fireplace with her tea steeping beside her and the scholarship flyer folded into a bookmark. Her inbox was full again. This time, Linda had forwarded a press inquiry from a women's leadership conference. The subject line read, "Would Evelyn Hart consider speaking about legacy, loss, and leadership?" She didn't answer yet, just watched the snow fall through the tall living room windows. Outside, the wind whispered along the edge of the glass like a memory that couldn't find its way in. Inside, Evelyn breathed deep. The heat kicked on, and for the first time in a very long time, she let herself feel it. The quiet, complete hum of a life she no longer needed to protect from her own son. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and cracked pepper, heat fogging gently against the windows. Evelyn didn't host much these days. Not like before, when she'd set the table for show rather than comfort. But this dinner was different. The plates didn't match. The napkins were cloth but a little frayed. The candle in the center of the table was one Linda had brought back from Vermont. Cinnamon and pine, slow burning and unpretentious. Outside, snow dusted the porch steps. Not thick, not yet, but enough to make the quiet feel heavier in the best kind of way. The framed letter sat on the sideboard near the dining room entrance. Karina's scholarship note, printed exactly as it was, notebook lines and all. The ink slightly smudged from the original fold. Evelyn hadn't changed a word. The frame was simple. Walnut, the kind of wood that holds weight without needing to shine. Linda arrived just after 5, cheeks pink from the cold, a bottle of spiced cider under one arm. "You made real food," she said, stepping inside. "I was expecting crackers and vengeance." Evelyn smiled. "That was last year." They sat by the fire while the cider warmed. Linda passed over a small envelope sealed with a silver sticker. "Early present," she said. Evelyn opened it slowly. Inside was a clipped newspaper column from the Idaho Ledger's Sunday edition, Heartline's Next Era, a legacy led by women. Evelyn Hart's rise from co-founder to sole operator wasn't a reinvention. It was a return. One that's inspiring local businesswomen and reminding the city what leadership can look like. Beneath it, someone had scrawled in pen, "Sometimes taking back your name is the loudest thing you'll ever do." Evelyn traced the edge of the paper with her thumb. The kettle whistled. She didn't rush. They poured the cider, ate slowly, talked about small things. Karina's trade school photos, a bakery that just opened near the old branch office, a candidate Linda liked for the grant review board. At some point during dessert, Evelyn's phone buzzed. Mark. Subject, final statement filed. The PDF was attached. Operating balance, closed disbursement oversight, transferred title, confirmation, Heartline Holdings, sole owner, Evelyn Hart. There was nothing left to fight for, no signatures left to chase, no approvals to request. Just the soft, settling silence of complete ownership. Outside the window, snowflakes gathered against the glass like petals. They melted slowly, leaving quiet trails behind them. Evelyn stood, took her plate to the sink, and rinsed it clean by hand. She didn't need the dishwasher tonight. Some things deserved to be done slowly. Linda flipped through a notepad she'd brought, double-checking names for the Foundation's upcoming retreat. "Do you think he'll ever reach out again?" she asked, not looking up. Evelyn wiped her hands on a towel. "He already did." "And?" "I listened," she said simply. "Then I deleted it." Linda gave a small nod. "I'd have done the same." They sipped the last of the cider. By the time Linda zipped her coat and left, the porch lights had flicked on automatically, casting warm amber onto the snow-covered yard. Evelyn stood at the window and watched her friend's taillights disappear into the quiet street. Then she walked through the house, turned off each light, passed by the framed letter once more, and paused. Karina's words looked different at night. Not fainter, just deeper, as if the paper had absorbed the day's warmth and decided to hold it. Upstairs, Evelyn folded a soft throw over the back of the chair in her reading nook. She lit a single candle, pulled a book from the shelf, and opened it to where she'd left off. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the air was warm. The silence earned. She thought of all the noise Greg had made trying to be seen, and of all the things she'd built once she stopped trying to be understood. Evelyn closed the book, not ready to read. Not yet. She looked out the window where the dark met the white in soft, generous strokes. Then she whispered to no one. He wanted applause. I gave him silence, and walked away richer than ever.